Today we're going to be taking a look at all of the Eeveelutions special illustration rares that are featured in Terastal Festival, the Japanese version of Prismatic Evolutions that has just been released in Japan and will be released in January of 2025 internationally and in English. Welcome back to another episode of PokeFang Unpacked, where we unpack the latest news, updates, leaks, and rumors in the Pokemon TCG collecting hobby. My name is PokeFang. Welcome to the Fang Gang. We're going to get right into it on the Eevee Express today with the Eevee EX special art rare. There are actually two special art rares, which will eventually be called special illustration rares once we get them in English in this set. So two Eevee EX SIRs, which I don't think anybody was expecting to see multiples of the same Eevee or Eeveelution, but we do in fact get two of them. This is the first one we're looking at right now by artist Tono. I am probably going to be butchering a lot of the names throughout this video. I'm just going to do my best and we're going to keep it moving here. But Tono, the artist who illustrated this card right here, which looks absolutely beautiful. I love it. It's got these leafy floral flourishes in the background. I will say a lot of the Eeveelutions actually stand out quite a bit in terms of the Pokemon versus the background. I almost feel like this is a pre-rendered Eevee in like 3D or something like that, and the background itself is actually what's made by the artist. I'm not entirely sure, but it just seems a little bit weird. The art style of the Eevee is consistent across some of the artworks. I haven't seen anybody else point that out, but it's something that I personally noticed. Nonetheless, the card looks absolutely fantastic. This artist, Tono, has only done two cards so far in the Pokemon TCG since Surging Sparks, including this one right here. So that's going to be the Spupa that we got in Surging Sparks, which is a really beautiful little artwork. Kind of reminds me of Over the Garden Wall, that sort of vibe. I actually added their Twitter handle right here, or their X handle, whatever you guys want to call it. But the feed right here that is in their media gallery is absolutely gorgeous. Lots of fairy tale-esque looking watercolor. I believe these are watercolor artworks. It's really cool to see that they're able to take this sort of art style and translate it into the Pokemon TCG, which obviously has its own design system for how Pokemon should be, rendered. This Eevee does look fantastic, but I want you guys to let me know down in the comments, do you prefer this Eevee or the next one we're going to be taking a look at, which is also from a brand new artist in the TCG. And that's this one right here. Unfortunately, I don't have a better version of this image. This is just a screenshot that was taken by somebody, and I believe I took this from Pokebeach.com or JustinBasil.com, one of the two. Again, it has that Eevee with its stellar Tera typing, and it appears to be just sort of suspended over a background here. This one has some really interesting hexagons filled with food in the background. It's some kind of a dessert, and that actually makes a lot of sense when you look down at the bottom here. I have the illustrator is Natsuko Shoji Ete, and I actually think Natsuko Shoji is the name of the artist, and Ete is the name of the bakery, patisserie. I'm not sure what to call it, but this is actually a pastry chef that creates food creations. I took a couple screenshots off of the patisserie's website here, so you can actually see that style implemented across all these different arrangements, and this is actually Natsuko Shoji right here. I am curious though, what was the medium for creating this artwork? If the artist specifically works with food as their medium. Is this actually a photograph in the background that's been rendered onto the card, or was it something that Natsuko actually illustrated herself? I'm not entirely sure, but I will say that this one is consistent with the last artwork in terms of having sort of the artist's art style in the background here, and then what looks like an entirely separate art style rendering composited over top of it with the Eevee stellar Tera type right here. I'm starting to think that I'm onto something with that. Moving on from the Eevees, now we're going to get into the Eeveelutions, with the first one being the Leafeon EX with that stellar Tera typing, and I actually really like this one. I'm not entirely sure what to call this art style. It almost looks like stained glass, but also has sort of a picture book style to it. Everything's got these hard lines. I would go as far as to say that the art style is a little bit Celtic in nature. I'm not entirely sure why that's popping into my head, but it feels right. This is from artist Jiro Sosumo, who has actually done plenty of cards in the TCG, not one of the old school OGs. They've been around since Brilliant Stars with 21 cards, including this one. They're also no stranger to doing artwork for Eeveelutions, especially Leafeon, because we actually got a Leafeon V-Star from this artist in Crown Zenith, and it's probably one of my favorite Leafeon artworks that we've had so far. There's a handful of them. I also remember this Vaporeon artwork standing out to me. I love anytime you see a water Pokemon sort of half in the water. Throwing it back to Brilliant Stars here with those yellow borders. It's crazy to think that something as recent as Brilliant Stars feels like a throwback, but you can see that this artist's aesthetic is pretty consistent all the way up to more recently the Gardevoir EX Special Illustration Rare. This is one of the ones that came in a full evolution line set. I don't think the same artist did all three of them. I did notice that they sort of mixed it up earlier on, and they now are starting to do it more recently, where the same artist does the full evolution line. But feel free to correct me in the comments. I think that Jiro Sosumo only did the Gardevoir EX, and I believe this is from Scarlet and Violet base. Up next, we have our fire type Eeveelution with the Flareon EX special art rare. Looking fantastic with that stellar Tera typing. I will say that this is probably the first one that we've seen so far. We actually see the little crystal Terapagos right here that is part of the stellar Tera typing crown. This is from artist Nurikabe that has also been around since Brilliant Stars with 17 cards, very close to our last artist. Not entirely sure what's going on in the background there. It looks like some kind of a ring with some like writing on it. Looks like some arcane writing. Almost reminds me of a little bit of like Lord of the Rings going on there with that fire and everything. Honestly, looks very different from Nurikabe's other artwork that we have seen in the TCG. You probably will recognize some of the cards that are on the screen right now. I mean, this Tyranitar from Paldea Evolved is honestly one of the big chase cards that is not a special illustration rare. It's just an illustration rare in the set. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. The line work and the shading and everything is very smooth, very organic, very realistic. Kind of a stark difference from what we actually have with the Flareon EX. Same goes for the Aerodactyl V. This is one of my favorite cards in Lost Origin. This is one of the big alternate arts, as we called them back then. Would be an SIR now. But it's got all these different fossil evolution Pokemon down here in the background. Almost looks like something straight out of Jurassic Park. Since that's one of my favorite movies of all time, I actually really, really like that artwork. And then we have the Sandile over here, which I just wanted to include from Scarlet and Violet 1. There's a lot of cards in the early Scarlet and Violet era that are completely overlooked. I think this one looks absolutely gorgeous. I love the shimmer of the sand as the light is hitting it. And I love that you can see these out of focus other Pokemon cameos in the background there. Just its little snout sticking up out of the sand. Super cute and great storytelling as well. But the Flareon, honestly, sure is going to look great in the hand when you actually pull one, but as far as I'm concerned, this might be one of the weakest in terms of my personal taste anyway. Feel free to disagree. And then we have the Vaporeon EX special art rare with the stellar Tera typing. This one's actually one of the first ones that we've seen so far where the artwork actually looks like it was designed by the artist. When I'm talking about specifically is the Pokemon itself. The Vaporeon in this image looks like it's actually part of the image. It doesn't look like it was composited or pasted over top of a separate artwork. It actually looks like it's integrated into the artwork in this one. And that makes sense because this is a truly, truly talented artist. I talked about them at length in other episodes. They're brand new to the TCG. Only been here since Surging Sparks with 3 cards. And this is sort of consistent with their art style. It's very fantastical and just beautiful. I can show you some other examples of Nadano's artwork. This is actually from their websites where they have all of the different illustrations that are from projects or from personal work as well. You can see that art style is consistent with the card artwork, and I love anything like this where there's a lot of stuff going on, but it still somehow manages to have a beautiful color palette, a beautiful composition, and so much to actually look at and unpack as you are scanning your eyes across this image. You just keep finding new fun stuff that's actually happening. That's probably because I am an elder millennial and I grew up with things like Where's Waldo and The Busy World of Richard Scarry. And like I said, so far we've been blessed with 3 different artworks from this artist, and one of them was the cast form Sunny form from Surging Sparks, which I absolutely love. I was super pumped to be able to pull this in both Japanese and English when I was opening up those sets. I'm a big fan of this art style, so I really hope we continue to get more artwork. I know I said that when I saw the cast form Sunny form in Surging Sparks, and we actually did end up getting another artwork, so hopefully that continues. Now we're on to the Glaceon EX special art rare by Kamome Shirahama, another new artist to the TCG. I'm not entirely sure if each one of these artists is coming from something else or if this is just the first artwork that they have submitted to the TCG. You guys can let me know in the comments if I missed anything. There's a few standouts throughout this video of people coming from other IPs with their illustrations, but I don't know personally. It's a little bit hard to track down each one of these artists individually. But this is an interesting one because I do actually really like the way that this looks. I know Glaceon's not everybody's favorite Eeveelution. This artwork does also have the same thing going on here where it almost feels more like a tapestry or a stained glass art piece of some kind with these solid flat sort of designs here in a background that's very different from the Pokemon itself. It's not exactly living in the background like we've seen with past special illustration rares. And while it is very pretty to look at, one of the things that I love about Pokemon cards in general is the storytelling aspect of it, and it doesn't seem like this card right here has necessarily any storytelling going on. It's just sort of a pretty aesthetically pleasing artwork that I think will mostly be appreciated by fans of Glaceon. Also, you have these little organic flourishes of vines and things like that in the background. And that's a little bit more consistent with this artist's art style. The only other card that we got from them was this Ninetales right here from Surging Sparks. One of the IPs that Kamome Shirahama is actually known a lot more for is this Atelier of a Witch Hat. I'm not entirely sure what that first word is right there. Really beautiful manga artwork right here, and it's in full color. I don't know if it's just on the covers or what, but these look fantastic. They have a little bit of like, I don't even know what to call this. It's like a vintage farmhouse aesthetic. It's very interesting. Kind of reminds me of like farmers' almanacs. This little stippled shading effect you can actually see in both the manga and the artwork right here on the Ninetales if you look really closely. Two very consistent things for this artist's aesthetic that I'm not actually seeing at all in the Glaceon EX, which is very interesting. Moving on now to the Jolteon EX Special Art Rare by artist Kantaro, who has done actually 34 cards now since Crown Zenith, which still feels very recent, but I guess it's been a while since Crown Zenith actually came out. I actually see a lot of parallels between Crown Zenith and Prismatic Evolutions. It almost feels like this is the set that is the Crown Zenith, but just focused entirely on Eeveelutions as opposed to all of the Galar Pokemon. Going back to the artwork here, the Jolteon is a very dynamic and action-paced sort of artwork. I like that they're using this vanishing point back here, where everything is actually sort of coming from. There's a nice little vanishing point and a horizon point right here. It's a bit of a Dutch angle. It's kind of crooked the way that we're actually looking at it. It is interesting that these are supposed to all be featuring the stellar Tera typing. However, all the little gems that represent the stellar Tera typing for this Jolteon are sort of cropped out of the artwork here. You can just kind of see them rounding the corner right here, and then they go completely out of frame. And then you can kind of see them sneaking back here just to wrap around. But from this specific, almost fisheye angle, we're not actually able to see the entire stellar crown, which for some people might actually be a really good thing. I know there's a lot of people that dislike the crowns. I was sort of trolling them in the beginning by calling them like Chiquita banana hats, but I actually didn't have any issue with them whatsoever. I just thought it was an interesting design choice to create that gimmick for this generation. But the Jolteon itself does look great, and honestly, it's probably one of the only ones that actually feels like it's built into the artwork itself. It's actually taking place in sort of the same world, not just stuck on over an existing pattern. And this sort of like colorful, vibrant, high contrast, high energy artwork is very consistent with Kantaro's other works, like the Pikachu EX, that is the World's 2023, I believe, championship promo card. That's a very cool card. It came specifically in a Pikachu Worlds 2023 deck in Japanese. And I was able to snag one of those online for, I think it was like $80 with a TikTok coupon. They might be less now or maybe more. I'm not entirely sure, but they had dropped in price and I decided to pick one up. And it looks even better than this in person. Really, really credible artist. This Miraidon EX is also fantastic. Again, Scarlet and Violet base, incredibly underrated in terms of artworks. I just feel like it was too soon for anybody to catch on, and a lot of people had exited the TCG around the beginning of Scarlet and Violet era, thinking that it was too kiddish, and I think a lot of people missed the boat with a lot of the incredible artworks that we got in the early sets, because this Miraidon EX looks fantastic. We also have this Iron Valiant EX, the future type Gallade, also with some cameo Pokemon here. I think we have a Iron Bundle back there, a Slitherwing over here on the right, and all future Pokemon with the Iron Thorns, I believe, is the future type Tyranitar robot thing. I actually just realized down at the bottom right corner here, there's another Iron Bundle photobombing with its top of its head right here. As we get closer to the end of the list here, we're going to take a look at one of the cards that I am personally going to be chasing for sure as a big fan of Psychic and Dark Pokemon, the Espeon EX Special Art Rare by Sui. I'm not entirely sure how to say that name. Hopefully I'm not butchering it, but this is an artist who has been in the TCG for a long, long time. And it's sort of an outlier because a lot of the artists that are featured in the Special Illustration Rares in Prismatic Evolutions and in Terastal Festival are new artists who have only been around for a couple of sets. So this is one that goes way, way back with 196 cards in their cardography, if you will, all the way back since 2009 with Platinum Arceus. And we'll take a look at some of their other cards in just a minute, but I just want to talk about how absolutely gorgeous this one is. The color choices The way that everything pops, it just looks absolutely fantastic. There's so much purple and blue. It's very whimsical and very fairy-like in a lot of ways. This purple going into the blues and everything. It really contrasts beautifully with the pinkish purple color of Espeon. The stellar crown itself, like everything here, the line work is consistent throughout this artwork. Doesn't feel like it's been composited over top of it. Does feel like it's incorporated into the artwork itself. But these colors look absolutely incredible. It reminds me a lot of the Gengar VMAX from Fusion Strike. I might honestly have to add this artist to my list of favorite artists because you can see that color choices and that palette is consistent with their other work. I mean, going all the way back to the tag team era, we have this Sun and Moon 191 promo with Mewtwo and Mew GX. Looks absolutely gorgeous. It's an alternate artwork promo. Really hope they bring back tag team Pokemon at some point. I think that would be really, really fun. But we also have the Galarian Rapidash V from Chilling Reign. This is a beautiful card that my wife actually pulled out of a Pokeball tin from GameStop just randomly. There was actually 2 hits in that Pokeball tin, and they both were, at the time, alternate arts. And I just could not believe it. And she's kind of been hooked on Pokemon ever since that. But this Hatterene VMAX actually stood out to me from Crown Zenith, initially because of the coloring looking absolutely beautiful, but also just because this reminds me so much of, I think it's like the tree spirit or the spirit of the forest or whatever from Princess Mononoke, the way that it sort of towers up over top of the forest. I don't know, something about it just reminds me of that anime. Our second to last evolution of the video from Terastal Festival and soon to be Prismatic Evolutions is the Sylveon EX Special Art Rare by Kona Nintanda, who has been an artist with the TCG from Obsidian Flames forward, with 14 different cards in their cardography, including this Sylveon EX, which looks really fantastic. Sylveon sort of represents all things pretty and aesthetically pleasing with all of the bows and flowers, and Evolving Skies is probably my favorite one because it's the first alternate art that I pulled from any set in the Sword and Shield era was the Sylveon VMAX, and I believe it was from a Costco tin if I remember correctly. It is kind of a perfect choice for this artist specifically because you may recognize them from the Erica's Invitation from Pokemon 151, the special illustration rare, as well as the SIR of the Parasol Lady from Paradox Rift, or the Bianca's Devotion, which I actually just pulled recently in a live stream and should hopefully be getting here in the mail pretty soon. And that one is from Temporal Forces. Both Temporal Forces and Paradox Rift, because of the fact that they were so overshadowed by some of the other sets that came out afterwards, I feel like they're giving me a lot of the same vibes that I got from Fusion Strike and Astral Radiance from the Sword and Shield era. In a long enough timeline, I think people are going to come to appreciate those sets. But as you can see in these artworks right here, we're seeing a lot of those same coloring, a lot of the same themes like the flowers and that sort of early morning light bloom. And I think that's a pretty great choice for this artist to be able to do the Sylveon artwork. Last but certainly not least, the Umbreon EX Special Stellar Art Rare. Absolutely gorgeous looking artwork. And I promise you I did not save this for the last just because of YouTube retention stuff. I did these all by type order. So I've been waiting to get to this artwork just as much as you probably have. This artwork is by Yashiro Nanako. I absolutely love this card. I think it looks stunning. It looks beautiful. I love the background tapestry. It's a little bit psychedelic, but also a little bit chaotic. It's very detailed. It feels almost like a woven tapestry or something of some kind. It kind of reminds me of Shinji Kanda artwork or even Tomokazu Kamiya, but it's a little bit less abstract and chaotic as those artworks are, which is honestly, I don't mean that in a bad way. That's one of my favorite things about Shinji Kanda and Tomokazu Kamiya is that chaos. This artwork by Yashiro Nanako actually feels a lot more pleasant and organic and comforting even. And if you take a look at some of their other artwork, like I said, they've only done 2 cards in the TCG, one of them being this common Dano on the right here. This is from Surging Sparks, so pretty recent. Like I said, this is brand new artist in the TCG. I went and checked out their X account and found a lot of this artwork right here, which is absolutely stunning. It's got this sort of fantasy folklore Art Nouveau style, and it looks really beautiful, and I'm glad that that was actually able to come through very, very well, especially with all the coloring that is in that stellar crown. And I know that there's a lot of hype around this Umbreon EX because obviously the last big Umbreon chase card that we had was the Moonbreon, as we all call it, the Umbreon VMAX alternate art from Evolving Skies. That card went absolutely insane. I happen to have pulled 2 of them. They're both still raw. I don't know how much it's going for right now, but it's well in the thousands. And I think at one point the BGS Black Label was like $10,000 or something like that. It was absolutely absurd. And I don't know if this card right here has the same appeal or the same hype around it as the Moonbreon did. I do remember in the beginnings of the Moonbreon period of time when Evolving Skies came out and people started pulling that card, it being kind of a big deal, kind of like the Greninja from Twilight Masquerade being kind of a big deal. It was a couple $100s. I think it was $200 when I pulled it, and then next thing I knew it was $600 and then $800, and it just blew up. But there was a period of time where it stayed at a pretty reasonable price. So I'm curious what's going to happen to this card when it actually comes out in the English sets, because we can't really go off of Japanese right now. The Japanese market is a little bit flooded and a little bit less exciting than it was a few years ago. But when it comes out in English, I know a lot of people are going to be freaking out over this set to try to pull that Moonbreon, and I'm very curious to see what happens. Obviously, as a collector myself and not an investor, as a fan of the artwork, obviously what I pretty much do is collect physical NFTs. This is artwork to me. That's why I really love looking at the artist's other illustrations. I hope I'm able to pull one. I hope everybody who wants one is able to pull one. I hope the scalpers and, you know, the bad actors in the hobby are not able to pull them. And I do hope that the value of it does go up over time. Hopefully it's not so fast and so extreme that, you know, people who aren't able to pull it are able to buy one for the cost of, you know, 1 or 2 boxes of Prismatic Evolutions, as opposed to never being able to get one altogether just because it doesn't make sense. It's too hard to pull and too expensive to buy. That's never a good situation. With all of that said, I am extremely hyped for this card personally, and the Espeon is probably going to be a tie for my favorite card out of the entire set. Prismatic Evolutions is going to be a very, very big deal when it comes out. It's already a big deal. It's sold out everywhere. I can't even get pre-orders in for this stuff. If I ever become a big enough YouTuber to have some sort of secret connection to be able to get access to this stuff, I'll be the first to let you know, but I'm still not there. I'm still right here alongside you guys. So that about does it for today's video. I am going to be doing a part 2 where we look at all of the special illustration rares that are in the set that are not the Eeveelutions, because there's too many. I need to split it up into multiple videos. So if you want to see that one and future updates of Prismatic Evolutions and upcoming sets, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and feel free to leave a like if you appreciate all the hard work that I put into this video. Thank you so much for sticking around and getting unpacked with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.